We're not issuing a marriage license today.
Actually, the United States Supreme Court has authority over you. Okay, you do not work in a religious institution. If you wish to discriminate, you can. If you wish to discriminate.
License today. I'm not discriminating because I'm not issuing a license to anybody.
Today's scene at the Rowan County Clerk's office in Kentucky was much like yesterday's, as County Clerk Kim Davis again refused to issue a marriage license to a same-sex couple. Davis has been denying marriage licenses to all couples since the Supreme Court's landmark decision on marriage equality in June. But on Monday, the court denied Davis a stay in the court's order that she issue marriage licenses to all eligible couples. It was her last legal resort, but she has continued to refuse to issue licenses.
Why are you not issuing marriage licenses today?
Because I'm not.
Under
whose authority?
Whose authority?
Under God's authority.
Davis says she is exercising her First Amendment right to freedom of religion. She said in a statement Tuesday, quote, "To issue a marriage license which conflicts with God's definition of marriage, with my name affixed to the certificate, would violate my conscience. It is not a light issue for me. It is a heaven or hell decision." Kim Davis's personal definition of marriage is coming under scrutiny as she continues to deny the right to others. As first reported by BuzzFeed, Davis is on her fourth marriage. After the first three ended in divorce, the fact was confirmed by her lawyer. Meanwhile, more than 100 miles south of Rowan County, another Kentucky County Clerk is standing with Kim Davis. Casey County Clerk Casey Davis says he will not issue marriage licenses. He plans to bike across the state in support of Kim Davis, calling the publicity surrounding her is the, quote, public prosecution of a Christian. The clerk for Whitley County is also refusing to issue marriage licenses. I'm joined now by Evan Wolfson, founder and president of Freedom to Marry, and Chris Geidner, legal editor at BuzzFeed. Evan, let me start with you. The Supreme Court decision that was hard fought. You were right there on the front lines to win that. How big a deal is this? How big a deal is Kim Davis in the overall story?
Well, the threat to the rule of law, if we start allowing any individual to impose their personal view as a get-out-of-job-free card, is very real and needs to be dealt with and taken seriously. But when we look at the big picture, this is completely an anomaly and really a sideshow to the big story. Is that America has taken another important civil rights step forward. The country has embraced it. Even those who don't necessarily fully agree are 99.99999% following the law, which is the way we operate in the United States. And so I think it's important that we deal with this kind of threat to the rule of law, but I think we also need to keep some proportion and not give her and the organization that's pushing her what they want, which is the magnitude of this sideshow eclipsing the civil rights transformation that our country has made.
You know, Chris, can anyone force this clerk or the other clerks I talked about to follow the law? I mean, historically, we've seen federal troops take part in integration. What's the possibility? Will there be any kind of intervention like that?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I actually, just before getting over here, published a story about what the next steps are, what could happen. And the truth is that under Kentucky law, we're very limited in what could happen. There's no recall of elected officials in Kentucky. The governor and attorney general have no authority to remove her. Even the official misconduct statute that people have been discussing because of charges that were possible there doesn't have removal from office as a punishment. So the only real option, if she's not willing to resign, and if the possibility of contempt action from the court tomorrow doesn't do it, is the possibility of impeachment.
You know, Evan, I want to stick on this question, and particularly the idea of sending troops to force an elected official, local government, to comply not only with the law but the Supreme Court. Would that even be advisable?
Well, I think we're
I know we're
many steps away from sending troops. I mean, we're not in this kind of massive resistance situation that we did see in other turbulent civil rights advance periods of our country.
1960s.
Absolutely. What we have here is one clerk, maybe a couple copycats acting on for a little bit, and the federal courts have not even begun to yet to fully deploy what's at their disposal, including fines and other measures. And Chris is really the expert on this and did just publish a good piece. But I think we're going to see other steps going forward. But I just want to underscore one other thing that's happening here, which is that not only is she discriminating against gay and lesbian loving and committed couples seeking the freedom to marry, she is punishing the entire electorate. I mean, everybody in this county now cannot get a marriage license because of her personal views and her interposing her ideas on what the law should be in a job that she swore to take on. I mean, you know, it's not like people are marching into her home saying, put your name on my marriage certificate. She's a clerk. She took an oath. She draws a taxpayer salary, and she's punishing the taxpayers because of her personal views.
You know, Evan, I know you saw, as we all saw, the video of that couple trying to get her to give them a marriage license, and you couldn't watch that without your heart being torn out. What advice would you give to couples, not just in Kentucky, around the country, who might find themselves in that same situation?
Yeah, well, again, let me underscore how few couples there are who are finding themselves in that situation. Most people follow the law. Most Americans have embraced this. Of course, the vast majority of the country supports the freedom to marry, and most couples have been able to get married, and we've seen an ocean of joy across the country. This is grandstanding by one clerk, maybe a couple others for a moment, backed by an anti-gay, anti-rule of law organization that's trying to stir up trouble, and we ought to be careful about not giving them what they want, which is more attention and more drama than actually is there. But what I would couples is to stand on your rights, but keep your sense of proportion. Don't let it eclipse your happiness in your day, and also trust in the rule of law that we are going to be able to move forward. And groups like the ACLU and other legal organizations are in court. Local attorneys, including attorneys who litigated the freedom to marry successfully to the Supreme Court, are in court, and the courts have yet to finish their work.
So despite what Evan just said, Chris, I have to ask you, should we expect more roadblocks on the way to full marriage equality across this country?
I mean, I think that Evan's mostly right. We have a couple of counties in Alabama that are doing a very similar action to what Kim Davis is doing, that they just aren't issuing licenses at all, but they have a statute that's slightly different. I think the thing to look is tomorrow morning, Kim Davis is going to be in federal court before Judge Bunning, and he's going to consider whether to hold her in contempt for what she's done, and that's going to be a big moment here. And
one more question for you, Chris. How much are the religious freedom laws that have been popping up in proposals all around the country, are they more of a threat than what Kim Davis is doing in one county in Kentucky?
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure I can assess what threats are, because that would depend on your view of what those laws do. But I definitely think in terms of attention that's being paid and in terms of the impact on the number of people, obviously the discussion over those laws is far more significant. And we actually see that Kim Davis is pointing to her state's religious freedom law as a partial reason, in addition to the First Amendment, why she should be exempted.
Evan Wolfson and Chris Geidner, thank you both very much for being here today.